After 1,000 years, Pandora's box was at last freed of its confines.
Is it possible that through all your suffering you still do not understand why you were chosen? Why Ares needed you?
You are the first mortal to ever reach Pandora's box. You must bring the box back to my city and use it to kill Ares.
The god of war has been plotting for years. Ares molded you to take down the very walls of Olympus, to make you beholden only to him. Ares and my mothers devised 3 blood tasks. Spill the blood of your enemies. The blood of the innocent.
My wife, my child, how? They were left in Sparta.
You've recovered Zeus's precious box. You are becoming all I'd hoped you'd be, Kratos. But you will not live long enough to see it opened. You will become death itself.
The mark of your terrible deed will be visible to all.
To kill a god, then the visions, they will end. The city will be your grave.
As the minions of Ares claimed Pandora's box, Kratos' life faded, and his cursed soul was cast into the fires of Hades.
And when all appears to be lost, Kratos, I will be there to help.
And Kratos fell into the underworld, the river Styx beckoning below, the currents strong enough to carry even the strongest mortal to his eternal resting place. But Kratos had no intention of resting yet. He intended to live, to return to Earth and complete his quest.
Let go, fool! You won't drag me down to that cursed river!
There is a task left for me above. I will see it completed.
You again?
Welcome back to more Let's Play God of War Hades Edition. That's right, we're now dead. Unlike the last time when we were here in Chains of Olympus and we were just, an intruder making our way to Elysium to save Helios from Atlas and later Persephone as well. Now we're actually dead. And we don't want to be anymore, so we're going to climb out using the bones of, I think, Titans, because these are very, very large bones, and the novelization makes mention that these are, like, Titan bones, which is a good idea, never elaborated on in the game itself, but it's good if these are, like, Titan bones and Titan remains that we're climbing up here. So when I said before that the pastures that we would be going to would not necessarily be greener, I meant red. They're red pastures, because we're dealing with Hades and the River of Blood here. This is a short section of the game, but it is difficult. We are dealing with the toughest variants of enemies in the entire game. I mentioned before how the Pandora's Temple enemies were not the, necessarily the toughest variants of enemies in the game. It's these ones. The Hades variants of enemies, these on-fire enemies, are the toughest versions of enemies that you will face in the entire game. There are no more difficult versions than the Hades variant here. Thankfully, there aren't that many. This is a very, very short section. It's difficult, but it's short. Again, this video is also less than half an hour long, and it's going to be cutscenes at the end to make the actual gameplay portion a little bit shorter than it already is. So it's not that long, but it's certainly difficult. This is definitely a step up in terms of combat difficulty. You definitely want most of your equipment to be fully powered up, especially the most necessary things like the Blades of Chaos, like your Poseidon's Rage, like the Zeus Lightning Bolt. You want Medusa's Gaze to be at least level 2, because that's still useful. And you still want to rely on your old tricks. Even though these enemies are on fire, don't worry. They're the same things that you did to them, back in the Land of the Living still apply. You can still launch them into the air. You can still mash circle when they're in the air. They're making a point, though, by throwing out the toughest variant of regular soldier at you, the ones with the swords in the sides first, just to show you that we're really dealing with an uptick in difficulty here as we reach the end of the game. Ares has killed us, but of course, and Kratos is just too mad to die. I'm doing some charge attacks with these enemies. It's not something that's particularly, 1000% useful in God mode. It's something that's more that you want to be more aware of for the Challenge of the Gods extras in God of War, as opposed to the actual main campaign itself. But the level 5 moves that you get for level 5 Blades of Chaos are pretty powerful, are pretty useful. Again, not as useful, and I died here. Yes. And there's my first death, my first of I think 5 for Hades. Thankfully, not a lot of them are combat related. This one was purely just a platforming snafu. And that archer just fell. The last few white chests of the game are in Hades. After collecting the last few white chests that are in Hades itself, there will be no more for the rest of the game, so expect the white chests here in Hades to have the most red orbs of any in the game. Expect there to be very few, because again, the last few of the game are here in this area. The last few usable, viable red orb chests and white chests are here in this part of the game. In the next video, once we get into the true final area of the game and head into our final boss encounter, we will no longer be dealing with red orb chests or white chests. I will say right now to please excuse any outside noise. A truck just came in to move some boilers or something. I don't know. It's annoying. The apartment complex I live in, every morning it's always some different truck, and unfortunately the morning's the only time I really have to do recordings. So that means that a lot of the time I am fighting for some sort of volume control with something from the outside, which is very unfortunate, but that is just the way it is. The Hades variant of archers, they're not that much more resilient than regular archers or Pandora's Temple archers. They have more health. It takes more punches from Kratos before we actually get the animation where he drops them on the ground and stabs them as so. But that just means you get a few more extra red orbs than you would normally. The whole first part of Hades is this balance beam maze area. This is the area that people really complain about when they talk about balance beams. And you know what? I do kind of see where the hate for balance beams, based on this area, I do die right there, based on the fact that I accidentally hit that blade. So that's death number 20. Yay. So I do get it. I do get why people don't like the balance beam sections based on Hades. I don't think it was enough to fully cut them away entirely in other games, or to lower the use of them because they were so hated. I happen to think they were okay. I mean, I get the hate based on Hades alone, but I don't know if it was enough to justify getting rid of it entirely. Here I'm upgrading my army of Hades because I finally have enough red orbs to do that. At this point, the only things left to upgrade will be my Medusa's Gaze to level 3, and then the Blade of Artemis, which is just, an optional thing that I don't really care about powering up entirely. But when it comes to all the things that I absolutely needed to have leveled up to their max by the end of the game, I have reached that quota. All the things that I wanted at my most powerful have now been upgraded to their most powerful. So I am in a good place now for the end of the game, for the last few encounters, and of course for the final boss. Anyway, going back to the balance beam puzzles, I get the hatred based on this area alone. I don't think it was enough to fully cut them out from the rest of the franchise in the way that they start doing, but I get it. I do get why it wasn't necessarily a beloved thing based on this one area. And the fact that this area is also a maze is kind of annoying. It's not a wide linear area. This is an actual maze. There is just one way to get out. As soon as you find it, you can leave, but it is an actual maze, and going off the beaten path, the only thing it gets you is more red orbs, which, if you want more red orbs, go for them. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck here dealing with balance beams for a good, decent few minutes here. Hades' variant of harpies are very annoying, but the army of Hades move is pretty good. It's quite good at dealing with them. It's the most overpowered magic in the game, technically. I still like Poseidon's Rage a little bit better, but Army of Hades is quite useful as well. I apologize again if you can hear, trucks and stuff going on outside again. Every morning it's always something different going on out here. Some kind of different construction or some kind of landscaping. Or not ideal for a space that isn't really a studio, but requires some kind of studio level silence, at least occasionally. With that red orb chest that was protected by the harpies out of the way, it's time now to leave this maze area and move on to the next part of Hades. Of all the areas of Hades, this is probably the most annoying part, the balance beam maze area. The other areas after this are less annoying to deal with, especially the infamous climb that I know people really despise, but I don't see the big issue with it. At this point, we have lots and lots of harpies to deal with, so I'm not going to speed up because, again, this video is already short enough. But just to show you that it is a lengthy process to deal with harpies. Harpies that aren't even giving you red orbs at this point, so the game is kind of encouraging you to move on and deal with the harpies as you go through the balance beams, but you absolutely don't want to do that. These harpies are not infinite. There's a lot of them, but they're not infinite, so if you deal with them first before dealing with the balance beam situation, it's going to be all the much better for you. So don't be discouraged if the harpies aren't giving you red orbs like these ones aren't, because they're not infinite, and you're going to want to deal with them before actually moving on to the last part of this balance beam situation. Now, of course, my ABE mentality of always be exploring got the better of me this time. I knew from my practice playthrough that platform on the right there doesn't actually have anything, but I went to check anyway, and I died. And as you can see, there's literally nothing here, so I wasted my time doing that for nothing. Thankfully, that's the end of the balance beam maze situation here. And now we get to move on to the second part, which is more of a combat challenge. It begins with archers on the other side of these fast-moving platforms. I tried to use Zeus's lightning bolts, but I fell again and died. And I got hit a lot, because I didn't do well that time with the archers. This time, as opposed to the Zeus's lightning bolt, I decided, since I have full magic, that I might as well just use the Army of Hades. I still took a lot of damage anyway, because again, Hades variants of enemies are the toughest variants of enemies in the entire game. There is no tougher version of enemies in the game aside from the Hades variant. Exploding arrows, again, not a fan of them. Almost dead again. This time I'm not going to die somehow, but very annoying situation to find myself in. So as I was saying, this area is a combat challenge. You have to kill all the enemies in order to open the way forward. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to actually open the way forward. Unfortunately, I wasted a lot of the Army of Hades dealing with the archers. So I only had enough magic for one Poseidon's Rage, and clearly that was not enough to deal with these Minotaurs. As I've been saying this entire time, the Hades variant of enemies are the toughest variant of enemies in the game. It's going to take me a while to deal with these enemies. I'm using some of the attacks from level 5 Blades of Chaos now to show off what they are. They're basically just fancy charge attacks that you can do from the ground or from the air. Where, the camera zooms in on Kratos. Kratos uses both of his blades and slams into the ground and creates this little shockwave that sends enemies flying back. That is a very useful. Those are very useful attacks. They're more useful in the Challenge of the Gods as opposed to the main campaign itself. but you will find some use for them in the main campaign, specifically in Hades, because Hades is where you're going to be fighting the most powerful enemies. You're going to want to knock them back every now and again. If there's any point where you're going to be using the level 5 Blades of Chaos charge attacks, it's going to be here. Unfortunately, it's a lot of Minotaurs for this first combat arena. I didn't necessarily have to come after the Minotaurs first, but there isn't really a chance to refill on magic here. Not safely, anyway. Meaning that the only way that I was going to get anything done was just to risk it all and just fight these very, very, very powerful enemies. And a lot of them, because they just keep on respawning. But they're not infinite. There is a set amount of them, and you do have to kill them all in order to actually be able to move forward, so be ready for that, as it were. Something I noticed as I was recording, but also, you know, here in the commentary, Minotaurs can actually kind of hit each other with their attacks. Just pretty cool. It's pretty nice to have that. I got so low on health here, I literally don't have any more health. Look at my health bar, it's literally empty. Because I took so much damage. But somehow I must have just the tiniest little sliver of health left, enough to keep me alive just a little bit longer. And again, I'm not going to die here, so it is impressive that I managed to win despite this unfortunate situation I found myself in with my health bar. Thankfully, it's about to get filled up now with the death of this Minotaur. As I said before, don't freak out by the fact that these enemies are literally on fire. They're not, you know, they're not. You are allowed to touch them. You are allowed to get close to them. If you weren't even allowed to touch these enemies, then man, that would be a very, very unfair situation to find yourself in. But thankfully, the fire thing is just an aesthetic. It's not actually, doesn't actually indicate that you can't touch them or anything. I decided to refill my magic instead of my health because for this I wanted to make the second fight a little bit more bearable. And unlike that first combat arena, there aren't as many respawns. Minotaurs are still going to be respawning pretty often, but not as often as they were in that first arena with the chests that either contained health or magic, depending on what you wanted. Now at this point, I wasn't too worried about red orbs anymore because I had gotten everything that I wanted fully leveled up. So I was more concerned with just killing enemies as quickly as possible, and that means throwing them off of the platform. Even though you won't get red orbs anymore, I figured at this point it doesn't really matter, considering I've already fully upgraded all my things to where I wanted them to be. It was more important that I just kill enemies quickly and not have to deal with them for as long. This is the climbing section that people really, really don't like for some reason. I think the one in the Cliffs of Madness is much worse than this one and the next one. I know the spikes can be kind of annoying, but it's a very just simple matter of just waiting for the right opportunity. I don't really get what all the hate is for this area in particular. Again, I find the climbing section, the Cliffs of Madness, or any other climbing section where you deal with enemies as opposed to just environmental hazards, to be far, far worse than this one. This one is a cakewalk comparatively, and it was a nice relaxing change of pace after the difficult combat arenas that I found myself in, fighting all of those Hades Minotaurs and Hades Archers with the various exploding arrows. In fact, I hate those exploding arrows so much, I'm about to die to them again, because, man, they're just, I'm not a fan of the exploding arrows. Not these guys specifically. The ones up above are the ones that are gonna end up killing me. The fact that the explosion is a delayed thing too is really not a fan of it. I was debating using the Army of Hades, but for some reason I wanted to save my magic and got shot for my trouble. Death number 23. And I got hit again, because they are very, very quick on the draw. God, don't like them at all. I believe that was the final death, though, of Hades. Just a very, very annoying archer who was very, very quick on the draw. I believe that's the final death of Hades and the final death of the regular game, not counting, like, you know, final boss stuff. Then we'll count final boss stuff, of course, but not counting final boss stuff, that was the last regular death of the game. 23, not bad for highest difficulty God of War. Of course, that number is going to skyrocket once we get into the next video, and you'll see. You'll see why. Not great. The final phase of the final boss is... oh, man. You'll see. You'll see. For now, though, we have another climbing section. Again, I don't get what all the hate's about. Compared to the Cliffs of Madness or any other climbing section that features enemies, this is very simple. And if you position yourself like in between two rotating cylinders, then Kratos won't actually rotate in any direction, which is an added bonus. At this point, though, we now enter the final part. So we started with the balance beam maze, then we had the big combat arena with the Hades Minotaurs and the Hades archers. Then we had the climb up with the annoying archers, and now we have this final section with one final battle, a difficult battle, but not one that I will die in. And I missed that red orb chest, so now I'm just speeding back through the other direction to make sure I get it. Not that I need red orbs anymore, but it'll be nice to fully upgrade everything to max. And I will be upgrading everything to max. We'll be talking more about the red orb situation that you get from the final boss in the next video. Because, of course, the next video we're going to fight the final boss. This final challenge in Hades is fighting satyrs. Many, many satyrs. Every satyr you kill creates a platform that will get you one step closer towards the exit of Hades. So you will need to kill enough satyrs to create enough platforms to go by. These are not infinitely spawning satyrs. You don't have to worry about fighting more satyrs after you create all the platforms necessary to move forward. There are only going to be a set amount of satyrs, and those set amount of satyrs are just enough to create the necessary amount of platforms for you to leave the area. They are, of course, very annoying. They take me a while to kill without magic, so here we go. I'm speeding up now, because some things I didn't want to speed up, but this took way too long to do. There's my slam attack, my meteoric slam. I don't know what it's actually called. There is a proper name for it once you get to level 5 Blades of Chaos, but that's the aerial version of the level 5 Blades of Chaos charge move that I did. Satyrs thankfully don't do that much damage. They are quite annoying because of just the fact they can stun lock you and like push you around the arena and stuff. That's going to really play a big part in the Challenge of the Gods, specifically the last Challenge of the Gods. But for now, it's just an annoying thing. They don't do that much damage, but they are annoying to land hits on and to kill, because they are such damage sponges normally in Pandora's Temple, and the fact that we're in Hades means that they have more health. And I was trying to get myself some magic to, cut the amount of time that I had to deal with these guys, but it just wasn't happening. They just didn't want to let me. Thankfully, with the satyrs, you can block everything they do, so it's not the worst, but they are just so goddamn annoying. I'm really not a fan of them. I finally managed to open a health chest, thankfully, but not the chest that I really wanted to open, which was the magic chest, which is what I needed to really speed things up until now. Thankfully, finally, I had the opportunity to do that. Now I believe there's only 2 more satyrs to kill. This one and then one more, I think, are enough to get me all the platforms that I need. Yeah, this should be the last one. I don't know why they stopped coming out in pairs. Like, they started off coming out in pairs, and then for some reason these last two just come out one at a time. I don't know what the situation with that is. Why they wanted to take it easy on you suddenly. I was trying to throw them off the platform, but it wasn't working. Using the level 5 Blades Chaos move that also pushes enemies around. It wasn't working to push them off the platform for some reason, so here we go with a long battle. Doing damage, but it's gonna take a bit. It's gonna take a bit, but we're almost done now. I believe now that we're back to normal speed, I'm about to kill this thing, so yeah. There we go. Yay! That's the final platform, and we can finally leave Hades. We're done with the video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. We're just going to open a couple of more red orb chests. We're going to upgrade our Medusa's Gaze, because we're going to finally have enough red orbs to do that. And because at this point, that's, you know, an optional thing. I don't have to upgrade it, but, you know, I want to finish, I want to get the max for everything, and to show that in a normal playthrough, even missing a whole bunch of red orbs, you're still going to get enough to, you know, to upgrade everything to max. I think there's a trophy for that in the PlayStation 3 Remastered, so you don't need to worry too hard about getting red orbs, because your chances are pretty high that if you're even half of engaging in ABE, always be exploring, then you're probably going to get enough red orbs to fully upgrade everything, as opposed to Ascension. Similar to Chains of Olympus, but as opposed to Ascension, you're probably going to get enough red orbs to upgrade everything. But here we are, end of the video, just a couple of archers here. We're about to have ourselves a short cutscene. Kratos has made it to the end. There's no obvious, you know, exit door to leave Hades, but we made it here, so hopefully something happens. I don't know what could. Here's a cutscene. That's convenient. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope to see you for the finale, and for the extras video, and for the collectibles guide. Hope you've been enjoying this playthrough so far. Thank you so much for watching.
And when all appears to be lost, Kratos, I will be there to help.
Kratos, and not a moment too soon. I only finished digging just a moment ago.
Who are you?
Now that is an interesting question. But for now, you must hurry. Athens needs you.
But how did you know I was...
Athena isn't the only god keeping watch on you, Spartan. Complete your task, Kratos, and the gods will forgive your sins.